Welcome back to the Nullified Take YouTube channel. We've got the TNT takes for you on Traitors USA Season 2, Episode 7. I'm the Big Kahuna, and I'm joined by the Wonder Boy himself, the Great White Hope. I'm pretty sure he's just a shaved down Bigfoot. M-U-C-K-N-Y. M-U-C-K-Y. Mucky!
Kahuna! How are you, my
How
friend?
you doing, Mucky?
I'm doing so good, Kahuna, but I've got to warn you. You got to stop acting like an ice princess, okay? Like, I see your facials, just like...
I'm a mean girl. I'm a mean girl at heart.
Yeah, you're such a mean girl, but I only radiate positivity. So how can we have a mean girl and a positive shaved down Bigfoot come together to recap an episode of Traitors?
That's the combinations that make this great. You know what I mean? The TNT podcast, we got Kahuna, we got Maki. We don't have Chris tonight, unfortunately. Our podfather, the man himself, is preoccupied with work today. So we're happy to step up and talk about episode 7 of the Traitors USA season 2. We came off of episode 6 with some big things potentially happening, including starting off episode 7 with a proposal to pilot Pete, the Bachelor himself, as the Nullified Takes most eligible Bachelor, arguably, for sure. Mucky, how do you feel about the fact that they approach Peter? We talked about that in episode 6, and we see at the start of episode 7, denied, rejected. Not that you would know what that's like at all.
Well, Ekin still hasn't responded to my message, so I do know what it's like to be denied. But no, it's a really interesting case, and I've sort of been thinking about it sort of all week long, right? Where if you accept, like, it's obviously a trap, right? Because the traders know that the Peter has clocked them, or at least Peter is very capable of figuring out who they are and also convincing a bunch of people, like, you know, to take them out because he's got his own click going. So can you really trust that, right? So I think Peter knows that this is obviously a trap, because if he gets banished and he's a traitor, then obviously his whole thing blows wide open, right? Like his whole alliance. So I think he denied it. So then if he does ever get banished, people in his clique will kind of stay safe, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know, like, if he's really truly that sort of altruistic and sacrificial, sure, like it potentially will protect his clique, and he doesn't have to turn on them and go after them and all that sort of thing. He's faithful till the end, the faithful of the faithful. But it's bad for his game. Like,
yeah,
he technically he's right. Like, as avid and as rabid and as much of a traitor hunter as he is, he should be dying. Like, he should be unalived by the next opportunity, which kind of came undone in this episode. And we're going to talk about all that sort of stuff. Obviously, episode 7 started out with that traitor denial. But before we get into that, I want to send a quick shout out to Aaron in the chat. Hey, Aaron, welcome. Do you think Peter made the right decision? I feel like in general, and maybe circumstances can change. You're the Traitors expert, Mark. You across all the different variations herewith. I feel like the general base rule is there is much more advantage to being a traitor.
Yeah.
If you get offered to be a traitor, you have to take it. Is there context or situations where it's actually where you think Peter maybe made the right decision for himself?
Look, I think, there's a lot of power in being a traitor, right? But I think also when you've been a faithful for a very long time, and then you become a traitor halfway through, it's very hard to sort of change your game like that, right? Because as a faithful, you're constantly on the attack, and as a traitor, you're now playing like a defensive mode, right? And we kind of saw that already, where Peter all of a sudden isn't throwing out Parvati's name now as a traitor, and because obviously he's trying to try to lower his threat level a wee bit, but that's coming out really suspicious towards a lot of people. So it's kind of like those behavioral things. It's like, you know, when Peter walks in, sees Parvati as a traitor, he can't just be like, okay, now I'm going to stop throwing her name out, right? Like he has to keep on doing it. Otherwise, then he's going to get caught. So I think when you're sort of like a head faithful type character, even though it's really bad for your game in the long run because you can get murdered at any point, it's actually probably smarter to stay as a faithful.
You reckon?
Because that way you have more power and stuff, right? In terms of the banishments, because then you can always keep on the attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you could very easily, like, I think someone in Pete's position at the moment, right? His bona fides is unquestionable. Like so
Yeah,
far he's got his 5, and they are faithful to the core. They know for certain Peter is not a traitor, and the
yeah,
fact that he also has now found a traitor in Dan and led that charge dramatically. He's even more so. Like you said, he's the leader of the faithful, so he's insulated from banishment, at least from his crew. He's not getting banished. His only danger is getting unlived. He's getting murdered, right? That's
yeah,
the only danger to him as far as, numbers go. So if you're a traitor, then you eliminate that chance. You can't get murdered. You can't get
yeah,
banished. As long as when you say you can't just all of a sudden stop your pursuit. You're right. You have to keep up the chase, but maybe you chase in other directions. So
yeah,
you're still throwing out Parvati, but let's throw out
yeah,
another name. Like, let's chase, and then if you miss, like, say you get your crew, you get the Fab Five, the Pete Posse, the PD Pals. You actually get them to, like, vote for someone random. He's a traitor now. He's accepted it. He's saying, I still think Parvati, but after, thingy, I'm not sure now. What do you think of Sandra? Right. And then you
yeah,
kind of throw out Sandra, and you're going towards Sandra. If you then wield that power that you have over the PD pals and the Fab Five to get Sandra out, and she's a faithful, like, it doesn't really matter. He's still got it. I don't think even a couple of misses and incorrect trader guesses and some faithful out is going to hurt the fact that he is the faithful of the faithful. He's the leader of the faithfuls. They're not going to start going, you know what I mean?
yeah.
The
Well,
only,
because
yeah.
sorry, after you.
No. The only thing that is really kind of stuffing him up is the fact that he was right in that he was so adamant that he should be dying, like he should be going home.
Yeah,
He'll get murdered, and the fact that he's not casts a little bit of doubt on him, and that's why I said you kind of have to take the traitor thing anyway, because by not doing it, and not if I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, maybe to
yeah,
the next episode and what's going ahead, but for me, looking at the situation now, Parvati said by him rejecting the recruitment, everyone's going to know there was an attempted recruitment because there's no murder. By him not being murdered, he starts looking even more suspicious, right? And
yeah,
if Parvati doesn't murder him and just lets him dwell in that, wait, Peter survived again? Like, wait,
yeah,
Peter's still not gone? Like, you're going to get that regardless. He's going to get that now. If he does not get murdered, if Parvati chooses a little bit of self-control, and I think she should, and not murder Peter, it casts some suspicion away from her and
yeah,
towards Pete, right? But him lasting longer makes him look even more and more like a traitor after the failed recruitment, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's going to happen now that he has rejected it. Regardless of what happens, he's going to get some suspicion his way because that's just the way the game goes. So if you're going to cop that heat anyway, you might as well be the traitor with some information and maybe some opportunities to duck and weave and try different things and push a certain way because you have information at hand. That's what I'm thinking anyway. But I do want to send a quick shout out to Lovely Nikki. Hello.
Hello,
Hello,
lovely
Kevin and
Nikki.
Lucky. Thank you for joining us so bright and early there on your Tuesday morning, Tuesday night for us here. But we are, of course, talking about episode 7. After Pete rejected that, Parvati and Phaedra, obviously very disappointed.
Yeah.
But Phaedra kind of says like that you kind of screwed now. Like that puts you in a really tough position. What do you think of Parvati's position now and Phaedra's position, considering Pete's rejection of their offer?
Well, I do think that like how Parvati played this episode was the best way she could have played it, right? You know, with a lot of help from Sandra as well, by the way, like really just laying out the numbers on someone from Peter's side needs to get banished, right? And I do think that there is now quite a bit of suspicion on Peter, or just take at least anyone out from that side. And I think all of them actually agree on that, because Peter definitely did not do himself any favors by like just kicking out everyone who kept coming into his his meetings and stuff. Excuse me, can you please give us a minute? Another minute. Thank you. Just one more minute. Just one more minute.
Just 1 minute. By the way, that 1 minute felt like it may have been a lot longer than 1 minute, right? Because multiple people, like freaking Sandra, was it Sandra, and then MJ was like, "Well, I'm going to go in." Then MJ, the most awkward. Like you could make that whole thing. She's just kind of standing there, like taking a step forward. Well, I want to be included, and they're like, just 1 minute, and she's like, doesn't leave, but kind of takes one little step backwards and just makes it longer and weirder. I loved it. It was weird to watch, and it made me like kind of uncomfortable because they're being so ignorant of the rest of the team that it's now. You mentioned Sandra laying out the numbers, and this is a little bit later in the episode, but we get to see. I think Sandra like forgot what show she was on. I was like, "Oh, this is Survivor. This is a game of numbers now." Because regardless of whether or not you're looking for faithful traitors, whatever, if their 5 is solid to the core, or no matter what, she's right. Like regardless of whether she's traitor, faithful, whatever, they can vote her out as to get not be in the final 5. Their final 5 is locked. And whether you're good at finding traitors or not, if you're not in that final number of whatever the final episode is going to be, she's going to lose. So she's going, oh, crap. Traitors out the window, whatever it is. Right now, I'm looking at straight numbers. There is a power alliance over there, and we're going to be on the bad end of the numbers. And she turns into a game of Survivor. What did you think of that strategy?
I mean, because like we've seen this time and time again, right? You know, like there's only been one player in the the history of Traitors, in my opinion, who's ever been able to actually like break and crack a very strong majority, and that was Brooke Howard-Smith in Traitors New Zealand, where he was originally, the faithful for faithfuls turned into a traitor halfway through, but there was like an alliance of 4 or 5 people really tight, but he was able to sort of like break them apart and weasel his way through. But Traitors Australia being another prime example of just like a big group of people together, and no one's just gonna try and do anything, right? And we saw it with the last Banishment as well, where people just saw her as just really a faithful that they can't work with, if that makes sense. And so, if you're not going to work with me, then you're pretty much just as bad as a traitor, right? And so, because traitors can turn on each other, we have seen that in the past. So I do think that with this next banishment, it's actually really good for the 6 outsiders, or the game players, I should say, to just stick together for at least one banishment or even 2, just so then they also have a chance on potentially reaching the end as well.
So this change in the game of seeing it more from a numbers side and looking at, like I said, the survivification of traitors with the Sandra in there, kind of, it was pretty cool how she's doing like the pool balls on the pool table. It's like, I was looking at it, I don't know about you, but I was like, this is really condescending. Like you're making it sound like they're dumb as shit and can't understand 5 people. There's 5 people, right? But then they showed the camera, and I think Kate was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And people were like, oh, I'm so glad she really pointed it out for us. I was like, oh, they didn't get it. I was like, that was really weird. But it not only did it put that group of faithfuls looking at the other side going, we're on the other side of the numbers here, but we also saw Parvati and Phaedra. We've now got a situation leading into this episode where they took a shot at Bergie
Hmm.
and missed because of the shield.
Yeah.
Dan then went home. Then there's a proposal that was denied. And
Mm.
then we come into this episode where banishment is actually stopped as well.
Yeah.
So the momentum that is going, or any momentum the Traitors had, is gone and dashed. They've been wounded with Dan going out. They've missed a murder. They've had a rejected proposal, and then a banishment not happen as well. Which maybe that was a good thing because it probably could have been Parvati that was banished. But Phaedra and Parvati looking like kind of behind the eight ball at the moment. The
Mm.
momentum and the feel of the game kind of feels like it's with the faithful at the moment. What do you think of their chances here to get out of this? First of all, Parvati's still on the edge constantly, and Phaedra, for the first time in the season, has also copped a little bit of side eye from Trishelle too. So, and they're behind here. They weren't able to recruit. They're looking, Parvati's been fighting against the numbers the whole time through. Is there a way out for the Traitors?
Yes, it is, and it's from taking out one of their own, and that's MJ. And let me break this down to you, right?
MJ. Okay.
MJ. Yeah, I was literally thinking about it tonight, actually, just before jumping on the podcast. So, if they take out MJ, they know that their group, like, had all agreed, let's go after someone in like Peter's group, right, to sort of even out the numbers, right?
Right. So this then,
So,
okay.
yeah,
Yep.
so if they had to trade it within their group, they're probably thinking the same thing. Let's open up the game a wee bit, and they'll take out someone from Peter's group, right? But I think that's the wrong move, right? Because then it
They
clearly
still had
shows
the numbers without MJ, isn't it? They would
that
still be able
it'll
to
be
outnumber.
it'll be 5-5. So here's what you do, right? You take out MJ and you solidify your 5 in terms of being like, see, like obviously majority of the traders, like at least 2 are in Peter's group, because otherwise why would we take out one of our own, right? And then even that could put a wee bit of suspicion on Peter. It's like, well, actually, that does kind of make sense, that maybe you did actually accept the proposal of the trader and you're just like protecting us, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
So while you're putting yourself like a step back, it could actually help put you 2 steps forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but do you want it to get to 5-5, or would you maybe take out a Trishelle or a wait? Who doesn't have protection? Trishelle or Bergie
Trishelle,
or Bergie? That's it, isn't it?
Trishelle and Berkey, yeah. But because what's so tricky about it, right, is that yeah, you take out Trishelle or a Berkey, right? But there's still a lot of suspicion on Parvati, and it sort of just opens that side up again. Because like, why would anyone within that 5 take one of themselves
Their
out,
own, and then
right?
there's only 4 of them, meaning
Yeah,
50% is a much harder sell, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. Which is why you got to make it a 5 and a 5. It's like, yes, that's a really risky position, right? But if it works out, it's going to heavily propel you forward.
Interesting. I'm gonna send a big shout out to Char Dude.
Hey, Chadu.
Hi. And Lovable Nikki says no. Some people are visual learners, hence the pool,
Yes.
the pool balls. Yeah,
But
made a lot of sense.
I'm a massive visual learner, right? You can tell me something like 20 times and I won't get it till I see it, right? But I feel like when there's something like this, where it's easy to count out, like you don't really need a visual demonstration to know that 5 people are going to be tight and loyal to the end.
Yeah.
And that there's 6 of you. Just vote one of them out and it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought the numbers looked pretty good, but the way she had to like go into detail, I was like, okay, it looks like it maybe was necessary. At the breakfast, obviously, we see. I like how the order of when they come in leaves it, a little bit on and they get the surprise factor and all that sort of thing. Of course, with Peter rejecting the proposal, Parvati and Phaedra have to kind of again like being that in the trader position, testing those acting skills. And seeing him walk in, having to act surprised or what's going how do you think they handled the breakfast situation? Because Pete doesn't tell anyone. Pete's keeping it cool. He kind of whispers to John and says, I'll tell you something later. But they all kind of everyone sort of figures out there must have been a recruitment. Did it work? Did it not? No one knows. And that's when suspicions start going funny. Phaedra makes the biggest eye roll I've ever seen on TV. And
Yeah.
Parvati takes a shot at maybe casting some sprinkle suspicion Pete's way.
Yeah, like I really loved what Parvati was doing here because she was just calling out Pete for everything he was doing. It's like, oh, yeah, well, you thought you were going to get murdered. Why are you still here? Like, are you the traitor? And Peter wasn't really saying anything. It's like if you're
Yeah.
Peter in that spot, like maybe the best thing to do it's kind of like, in Survivor, if you get caught red-handed with an idol, right? It's like, don't try and hide it. Just be like,
I
yeah,
got
I've got it. and wear it.
recruited. I said no.
Yeah, exactly. Like try to do like a public thing about it, right? The only hard thing is that some people may believe you, some people won't. But at the same time, I feel like that's much better.
Because
than
then again, you go, like I said before, like he's gonna be, and with any kind of competence from Parvati at all, she can make this little sprinkling of doubt into a snowball.
Yeah,
He's gonna have that, and every episode that he's not killed by the traitors makes him look more and more like a traitor. There
yeah,
was a recruitment. We know there was a recruitment. It makes sense to recruit the person that they're going after the most, like that is the biggest threat to their game. It has to be Pete that was recruited. He's come in, didn't say anything. Yeah, it's a tough position. It really
yeah,
put him in, like I said, if you get traitor, you take it, man. You have to. It's such a hard position to play from. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Well played by Parvati that if he's not going to take it, then fine. Like, you deal with the consequences. See what happens now that you're not taking it. And of course, after breakfast, we head to our challenge/mission for the day in the woods, involved carrying a bunch of gold, answering questions, and avoiding traps with the wrong answer to win
yeah.
money. What did you think of the challenge for this
Oh, I
episode? Or
I
the
love
mission?
this challenge.
It
I
was
love this
really
challenge.
cool, eh?
Yeah, like especially when when you try to grab the note but you fall into the mud pit or just a giant net would come up and just catch you, right? It would be quite cool if they had like another trap or something for the third one because I believe it was like the same for two in a row, but still either
Yeah.
way, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I thought, like, I don't know if you picked up on it, but being a horror movie aficionado such as yourself, like even the edit and the fact that it was in the forest, there was a lot of what do they call it? B-roll. There was a lot of
Yeah.
B-roll shots where like it was the misty, like it really had the vibe of like a horror movie out in the woods. It was creepy, and it kind of had a grayish tinge. They did well with the edit, I thought, to put that in. And then like special effects wise, like as far as practical effects, we don't often get traps like this set up in Traitors. And like it's funny how, like, I imagine, you've worked in television production, and we'll be setting up things like this in the future. Maybe you can do some really cool stuff like that. But I imagine, right, like you look at the way it's sort of set up, and they go, it's A or B. As soon as they start walking down and they see all the leaves that they have to pick up the clue from, you're like, ah, man, I don't want to go on the leaves. I want to go on the hill where there was no leaves covering a net. Like, it looks so sad. And I don't know if you noticed as well, but every person that got caught in the net had to like kneel in a very specific way in order to pick up the clue. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did
Like, it's
notice
not like
that,
they just walked up and grabbed it. I think they would have. I reckon what happened is they go up and they're like, okay, you're done. You got it wrong. You have to now. This is what you're going to do. You're going to walk up very gently, kneel in this very specific position so your legs don't go through your nose when the net comes up, things like
I mean, it's just like with reality TV Squid Game that we'd covered, right? We apparently for the glass bridge, they got stunt doubles.
Yeah. I don't know. You reckon they got stunt? I don't think they got stunt doubles. Maybe they did, because that net would fucking hurt, right?
No, not really. Like,
You reckon?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I've fallen upside down, my fair share, my fair share of times growing up. But
Yeah,
obviously,
Mikey, you're
not
21, bro. You're a young man. Imagine John getting like done up in a net or something like that. But I did think it was cool. The net looked really cool. The falling into the water, like
Yeah, that
the
was great.
bridge, like, and the fact that Pete got very muddy. Parvati
Yeah,
loved it, getting a little bit of his own. So very cool challenge. Level of difficulty though, I don't know. Like I feel like way more people got done than should have.
yeah.
Like the questions weren't that hard, but only what, like how much money actually got through? It wasn't that much in the end.
It was 8,000.
Yeah, like it
Yeah,
really, they didn't do that good. Um, so I don't know. Like I thought they would have done better, but it was a visually fascinating, fun challenge for sure.
yeah. Yeah, I really liked as well that like if you got it wrong once, like that was it, right? I've been rewatching this game Until Dawn. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, Kahana, where it's like if you make one wrong decision, that like affects the entire game. Like if your character dies, like you can't just respawn, you have to restart the entire game to try and
Yeah.
save them. And it felt kind of like Until Dawn-esque. It's like, do you potentially go down this path or do you go down this other path? Right? One's
Yeah.
like definitely you make it through, and the other one is you're stuffed. So
See what
yeah,
happens.
I
Of
really
course,
liked it.
I also like the added stipulation that the fastest team to complete it would win the shields. And the
Mm,
fact that Sandra was like blowing hard, like puffing, like can't, like the heels look big to her, but Kevin and Sandra taking it out and protected with the shields. What do you think of that? And she was stoked, man. It's like she won Survivor again or something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's obviously it seemed like quite a physical challenge. Like, well, I guess not really physical, more like endurance based, right? Like, constantly like running and running because it's whoever gets the fastest time.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so yeah,
Not
I was
really
really
Sandra's strength normal traditionally,
no, exactly not. But yeah, super happy for Sandra. Technically her first immunity, right?
Yeah, she said it was
Yeah,
her first win. So,
yeah.
and immunity as well, is it? Like she's never even won an immunity?
Nah, because her
Oh, that's why she's so
because
stoked.
because Nina won immunity in a sitting down challenge, which
Right.
of course a Twine would win that. and yeah, Sandra officially won her first ever immunity. Like, yeah, it's historic. Historic, Kahuna.
Yeah, absolutely historic. Lovable Nikki said Pav was ridiculous at breakfast. She's acting like a traitor. Peter definitely knows. It was like she was upset he rejected and he just laughed at her. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder how much of, like we see it so many times, the looks back and forth, like
Mm.
that, a lot of that is the edit, right? They're not
Yeah.
staring at each other like stare down in real time at breakfast, but it really, Parvati did push it hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like she was like, that I know that that I know, but I'm trying to, as long as no one else knows and Pete knows, like it's
Yeah.
okay because we know anyway. Like I'm not
Yeah.
changing his mind as long as I get it past everyone else.
But
Level
also,
Yep.
also just go back to previous comments about like Parvati's if it acted like a traitor. There was a contestant named Robbie in Traitors New Zealand, and she was so bad at being a faithful that like a lot of the time people thought she was a traitor, and it just got to a point where people thought like, what, she's just a terrible faithful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
and
but
and
we've
so
heard it before. We've heard it so many times. You're either a traitor or a horrible faithful, or a faithful I can't work with, or whatever. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
exactly. But I feel
yeah.
like this because I know that Julia from Traitors New Zealand, I did a deep dive with her. She was saying that she was trying to walk a fine line between being suspicious enough so then the traitors don't murder you, but
Yep.
also being not suspicious enough to not get banished,
It's
right?
such a difficult task.
And exactly, it's very hard. But I think this the sort of line that Parvati is walking down. I think she knows that people thinks that she's a traitor. So maybe she's just like, well, people really think I am. Why don't I just keep acting like a bit
Yeah.
suspicious and stuff? And I don't
I don't
know.
know.
It's,
I don't know if
it's a
that's
hard path. Like, I don't see a path for Parvati to make it to the end, which is
no.
really unfortunate. But she just got too much heat on her.
So Lovable Nikki said here that Pete would have been was not the correct choice to recruit. Who do you think was then, as a bit of a sidetrack? side mission quest here?
Good person to recruit. Well, because the aim of the game, right, was to recruit Peter, and then you vote him out. He says he's a traitor, and then it's kind of like, okay, see, he was trying to get rid of me, but I'm not a traitor.
See, I don't think you can get Peter. If you recruited Pete, I don't think they could have done a recruit to dump straight away, a recruit just to turn on, because
Maybe
it would.
Bergie?
Maybe Bergie. Like, if they had recruited Pete and then cut him straight away, everyone would go, well, he was clear, like, he was the recruit. Like, clearly he was the recruit, which means there were other traders. That means Parvati's still at the forefront. If she's going to recruit Pete, I think she had to use him as best she could and not just get him in to cut straight away. You know what I mean? And sacrifice another. I don't know who would have been. I love what Nikki's saying. Trishelle would have been a good pick as a recruit, because she is in that Pete posse, the Petey pals.
Yeah.
And maybe, so rather than the leader, someone else to sow dissent in there, you know? Interesting.
Maybe.
I like that as well. When I said that Pete was the right choice before Nikki, I think that's what they would all assume. Like the most obvious choice, or the one that makes the most sense. But when it comes to traders, you're kind of metagaming the whole way. Like, you think I'm going to do this, therefore I'm going to do this. But because you think I'm going to do this, therefore I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to constantly one up in that thought process. So he wouldn't be the right choice. But I do think at the base level, he kind of makes a lot of sense, except that it's just, like you said, too obvious, and he's the most faithful, and context matters and personality types. And maybe they should have taken into account that Pete wasn't that type, but I don't know. Level Nikki did say, you think these people were reading the signs on the walls of the castle? They are drinking. There's no chance they're figuring out what, keep your friend. Like, some of them, when I said the level of difficulty, is not because I thought I remembered from the castle, or I remembered that thing specifically. Of course not. I just know, like, if you're choosing in a show like The Traitors, where it's all about murder and blah blah blah, and there's going to be a sign in the kitchen that says keep your enemies close or keep your friends close, like,
it's going to keep your enemies close, right? Like, it's just more common sense.
No,
that was the right one.
It wasn't the right one. That was the wrong one.
It was.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
No.
Yeah.
No, I swear it was the other way around.
Maybe I don't know, because I was like, maybe someone in the chat, we're doing a bad job here. Chris is going to get angry at us for not having the appropriate notes again. I'm pretty sure it was that way, because in my head, I went, why would anyone put up a thing in the kitchen that says keep your enemies? Like, it's the place where you socialize and get around the kitchen. It's keep your friends close, but because it's the Traitors, keep your enemies closer. You know what I mean? Like, that's the saying, right? Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Yeah. You wouldn't put your enemies closer.
Yeah, it might have been that.
It was the friends. Yeah. So that's why I was like, I didn't even need to see the sign. In my head, I was like, you wouldn't put that in a kitchen. It's keep your friends close, but your enemies is is. But anyway, you're right, Nicky. Like, they're not looking at that sort of stuff. None of them are like picking up on clues in the house, in the castle, and all that. So I just had a moth fly past. So
all good. Yeah, especially when it's like legends of like reality TV as well. Like, they're not going to analyze things. They're like, yo, where's the bar? Where's the food?
Yeah.
And let's get to the banishment. Let's get to the juicy part.
Especially someone like Kevin or Trishelle. After the challenge, Kevin and Sandra got their shields back at the castle. Pete finds out that he may be potentially banished here because people are worrying about like we said, suspicion is automatically going to be cast his way when he's not murdered and there's a recruitment. And Pete starts worrying about it to the point where he actually approaches both traitors in Parvati and Phaedra. Does he know that they were both traitors? I don't know, but he's approaching Parvati and kind of saying, hey, let's work together here. What did you think of, first of all, his approach, and then both Phaedra getting the hell out of there, like having nothing to do with it, and Parvati maybe entertaining a bit as well, but also ultimately rejecting?
Well, so with Phaedra, real quick, like, I know we've both been really impressed with how she's playing the game so far, And I think we actually got a glimpse of it. She's not doing these tight one-on-one conversations or like threesomes or anything. She's always in a big group, right? And that big group always decides together, right? And she's not putting herself at the front of the group. She's just saying yes, yes, yes to every plan. But if you put yourself in a situation where it's just three people just one-on-one talking about the banishment, then you kind of have to like put yourself out a bit more. But I think we clearly saw Phaedra takes herself out of those situations.
And should she have?
Yeah. I think so.
You're right. I think she played it smart as, because she looked at that and she knows, obviously being a traitor, but even if she didn't, even if she wasn't, she's looking at going, Parvati and Pete obviously have been going at each other and they have each other set in their targets. If this comes up in a round table, I don't want to have anything to do with it. When they're saying, but you said this and you said that, and Phaedra was there, Phaedra can say what you said. You know what I mean? Phaedra's gonna be like, nope, don't drag me down with both of your traitor suspicious asses. You know what I mean? Like Parvati, the one who has been suspicious the whole time, and then Pete, the new suspicious, and Phaedra's like, I don't want to be with either of you. Like, she noped out of there straight away. So smart by Phaedra.
Very smart. But also with like Peter and Parvati, right? It's a interesting situation that we sort of brought up where Peter knows that Parvati is a traitor, and Parvati knows that Peter knows that she's a traitor, but they're still trying to act up. They're like, no, I'm a faithful. Oh my gosh, like you get what I mean? And so but I feel like they're both going at it so hard at this point, they can't really just stop, because then it will damage both of their games.
How would it damage Parvati?
So basically, same thing with Peter, right? If he stops going after Parvati, everyone's going to be suspicious. Why have you stopped saying Parvati is a traitor? Did you maybe accept the recruitment and you and Parvati are traitors? Same thing with Parvati. If she stops going after Peter, it's like, hang on, why are you not going after Peter anymore? Did you maybe get recruited? Because
Parvati hasn't really been going after. She's playing defense, right? She's kind of going like, why do you keep attacking me? Are you the traitor? Like, that's the only. She's not actually like trying to take him out, or hasn't been via banishment, via getting votes or whatever. She's just kind of going, this guy's crazy. He keeps going after me, and I don't know why.
True.
Which is I mean, it's the only thing they can do, right? Like, like there's nothing you can really do to defend it. But it's at this point that Alan actually comes in and announces that there will be 0 banishments this episode. So this whole plan of the pool balls, the potential here for the Parvati Pete showdown, and what was going to be or potentially building up to be a really amazing roundtable kind of gets nixed for a fire ceremony taken straight out of Survivor, apparently.
Well, we all know I'm a big fan of non-eliminations, Kahana. Like,
you are.
I do. I actually do really like non-eliminations. I feel like, especially when it comes to Australian Survivor, some of the best story arcs come from non-eliminations, right? And so I think, but with this one though, I don't know. It just doesn't quite make sense. Like, I get what they're trying to do. It's like, it's now like, because how great would it have been, right? If the 6 outsiders were the ones that were safe, but then it was Peter and his gang that was all left up for murder, right? They kind of wanted that like emotional sort of thing, right? It's like, dang, like, we're like a group of faithful, but it's one of us is 100% going, right? Obviously that's what they're trying to aim for, but I don't think they quite got that. The only thing we got was like CT and Trishelle, and then there was MJ who was a bit upset. But I feel like what they're potentially trying to do, it didn't quite execute, if that makes sense.
Why do you think, like, I don't understand how that was. I don't really know how they would be trying to engineer that kind of outcome, because there's no way you could possibly control it, right? Like, unless they really thought it. Because I know, like, I'm pretty sure, like, on Survivor, I've heard that the producers will often ask them who you're voting for before they actually do the vote, right? So they can, plan things properly, etc. So maybe it was that, but like I don't know how they would think we're going to end up with a bottom 5 that will cause all this emotional turmoil because they're the faithful of the faithfuls that are no longer safe, etc. But anyway, lovable Nikki type of things. She fact checked correct answers. Keep your friends close. And Blood Money, what up, Blood Money? Said Parvati wants to hook up with Pete, but Pete isn't seducible.
I mean, I am. No. It's quite strange. You've got Parvati, who's like known as the flirt of American Survivor, right? She's like the goddess. She's the Black Widow Brigade. And then you got Peter, who's the bachelor. You get what I mean? Like they're the ones, like neither of them are going to be seduced. They're the seducers.
Well, I mean, Pete was the bachelor, right? He wasn't one of the bachelor. He wasn't on the Bachelorette trying to get the Bachelorette. He was one dude with 15 women throwing themselves at him. He wasn't seducing anyone.
True.
He had menu choice. He didn't.
True.
Oh, Blood Money with some insight here, guys. Did you know Larsa and Marcus split up after the Traitors? Wow. If two lovebirds like that couldn't make it long term, with the 30-year age difference and the fact that she was married to his dad's best friend and colleague and all that, and the fact that
babysit him as well.
Huh?
Didn't she babysit Marcus or something as well?
Oh, I mean, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't know. That's pretty messed up. But I mean, if two people like that can't make it in the world, Monkey, what hope is there for any of us?
There's none, especially with Larsa, because let's not forget. So I've recently got one of my closest friends to start watching this season of Traitors with me. Maybe we'll get him on for the final podcast. That'll be pretty fun. But like just Larsa, and just all of her calls in the game, like, oh, I've got such great hearing. I can hear the waves of vibration from his jacket.
Yep.
I can hear a pin drop. Like, it's so good. So yeah, unfortunate for them, I guess.
So we end up in the fire situation.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus and Larsa's relationship not saved, but a few of these people are able to be saved. We end up with only 5 players vulnerable at the end. Which Kevin and Sandra get to choose the spared ones. So we end up with Cherie, Phaedra, CT, spared.
John.
Phaedra picking CT picking John instead of Trishelle, and then John saves Peter, leaving MJ, Bergie, Kate, Parvati, and Trishelle. So only 4 options for the Traitors to pick from because Parvati is one of them.
Yeah.
What do you think of Trishelle being so butthurt by CT's choice here, and then the way CT handled it when Trishelle asked him about it?
Well, I mean, it's a question I had for you actually, because I don't watch the challenge, right? So, like, from what I've understood from this show, they haven't had the best history together. But then as time sort of gone on, they've sort of become like quite good friends and stuff like that. So, what is their history on the challenge? Do you know?
So there's no good history. Like, they have had stoushes in the past and not had a good relationship. The only reason why, they said in this, like, they haven't seen each other for a long time on the challenge, like long time. And when they were young and fighting and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, Lovable Nikki called Trishelle Trashelle. That's because that was her nickname. She was so drunk all the time, literally just an absolute mess. So no, they weren't friends and they didn't have a good relationship. And coming into this, like, you saw Trishelle sort of say, like, it's good to know, like, we have had issues in the past, but we're good. And they've only come good because they're literally colleagues that are now 40-something and have been in the business for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of be okay with people. You're not friends and working together in a relationship. You just don't hate them anymore because it's 20 years ago and we're old now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you know, he's got kids and divorces and life and things have come and gone, and he's won championships and millions of dollars. I'm sure he doesn't care about whatever happened with Trishelle in the past. And then
Mm.
we see in this season, like, the funny thing is, Trishelle was so hurt by it, but Trishelle hasn't worked with him at all, right? Except for that one conversation where they said, it's good to
Yeah.
see you kind of being on the same page together. That's good. It's been 20 years, whatever. But we haven't seen a single interaction with them, right? She's all about the PD posse.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've seen him be good friends with Phaedra and stuff like that. But there's been zero between them. So for her to be so butthurt by it, I was like, I get it because you have that pre-relationship, but it was literally just a relationship. He's playing the game, you know what I mean? And one thing CT is known for, and has been a little bit of a downfall slightly in his challenge game, is that he is very much about the game. He doesn't politic that well. He doesn't do relationships that well as far as like using them socially. He's very social in that he doesn't offend anyone. He's kind of Uncle
Yeah.
CT and everyone's cool with him. No one wants to offend him. He doesn't want to offend anyone. We just kind of get along, and that's CT's deal. Um, but I don't know. So the fact that he put it out there very matter of factly and said, look, John's very important. That's kind of what he would do. He would make a decision that's based on best for his game, be matter of fact about it, and just say, look, I
Mm.
picked her because she's better than you and she's going to get me further in the game. That's the way it is, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of how he approaches it. Trishelle is very emotional and doesn't. So I think that was the wrong approach considering the specific audience that he was talking to.
Mm.
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
was just like John's way, and she was like, "Is he smarter than me?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Exactly.
Like, didn't
Exactly.
like what did you want him to say there? The guy
Yeah.
who is clearly smarter than you, who's a freaking like a UK politician that speaks like golden stuff comes out of his mouth every time he opens his mouth. It's so eloquent and like a poem. And she's like, "Is he smarter than me?" Like, what? Yes,
Yeah.
he's
No,
way
it's
smarter than you.
yeah, it's kind of the thing of like, do you actually want to hear the answer to that question? It's kind of like when you break up with someone, it's sort of like, is there someone else? Is there someone else? Like you get what I mean? Like it's you don't really want to know the answer to that question, but you're sort of just
Yeah.
asking it because it's just heat of the moment, right? And I think if anything, because I've sort of always wondered, why is Trishelle in Peter's crew, but not really in like the gamers crew, if that's what makes sense, with like Sandra, Parvati with CT and whatnot. And I do think if
I'll
this,
tell you why.
yeah,
Because Michelle's time on the challenge was not what it is today, where it
I,
is very much like gamer mode. It is maybe not on the level of Survivor as far as
mm,
strategy goes, but it
yeah,
is a strategy-based game very much so. When Trishelle was on it, it was more carnival games. There was a social aspect of voting people off and all that sort of thing, but it was more, the money wasn't as big, so the competition wasn't as good. The athletes weren't as big and as strong and as fast as they are on the challenge now. It's really progressed over the years from like frat boys and frat girls doing college like stuff, drinking, having fun, being trashy, trashelle, into like very serious survivor style competition with very physical requirements as well. So she was at a time when it wasn't game mode. Like
mm,
CT is a gamer. It's very strategy. In the last 5 years or so, it's developed that way, and he's been at the forefront of that. Same as
yeah,
Bananas, but Trishelle was never. Even when she was in that, she wasn't that type of player anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I'm not really too sure how Trishelle and CT are going to move forward. Then I think if anything, this just locks Trishelle into her lines even more. Which, I mean, I do think if you're Parvati and Phaedra, you have to risk it and take out MJ and make it a 5-5. Because I feel like that's
Well,
the only way.
what do you think about
Or
CT though,
tiebreaker.
from the perspective of he's in the, like, if I'm calling it the PD pals, as far as the pool table demonstration goes, Sandra's 6. Sandra's
Yeah.
6. Like, he's over there, right? And he was part of that discussion, saw the numbers and saw They have the 5. We need to be able to get one of them out. And then he saved John, right? Who then saved Pete.
Yeah.
Like,
That yeah, like when I saw that, I was thinking, CT, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Like, I understand why he saved John, because John would have been such an easy murder, because he is like, nobody thinks he's a traitor anymore, right?
yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
your safe bet would be like a John in that scenario, and that's probably on both sides of the groups as well. So it's yeah, it's quite interesting what CT did, leaving Parvati and also MJ, well, I guess just MJ out in the open like that, and this
Yeah.
potentially sort of makes people question: is CT doing that just to try and keep relationships up because he's a traitor? If that makes sense, maybe that's something that could spin some point down the road.
Yeah. I don't know. See, my take on it is that you're right. Like the fact that John is so clearly and obviously faithful, um, and CT is faithful. He's trying to play the game. He's not trying to play the numbers necessarily. He wants to actually, he's faithful, strong, knowing John is 100% faithful. I don't know, but I don't know if I buy the argument and how he's saying he's kind of more important to what we do, or like he's very valuable in his skill set. I don't see that. I haven't seen anything John has done in the slightest
Yeah,
that makes it look like he's good at this game. Like, have you? Like, has he stood out
no,
as far as? No, I like the way he talks and I love the
yeah.
way he runs.
Yeah, that was real funny. Like
But
it was actually, and I hate to bring this up on yet another podcast, but I always just find my way to sneak it into a bunch of different podcasts we have. How he ran was very similar to how the legendary Winnie the Pooh ran in the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey film. Like arms off to the side, like just like like that. It was so funny. Like
I still haven't watched it.
yeah. One day, Kahuna.
So yeah,
We'll do a
we
live
have
reaction.
Trishelle disappointed, we have MJ disappointed, but we obviously have a few of them available for murder. We go to the turret with look, there you go. Always on about Winnie the Pooh.
Lovable Nikki, please tell me you have seen Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. If there's one listener that we have that
She's
would have
not
seen
watching
that,
that.
I'm hoping
Lovable
it's you.
Nikki is an adult. She's an actual adult human being that
Hey, I've technically reached adult age now, Kahuna. All right.
there you go.
What do you mean? Absolutely not. What do you mean, Lovable Nikki? Honestly,
We like our
try
Winnie
it
the
out.
Pooh cute and eating honey and not murdering.
I mean,
He's
he
not a
does eat.
traitor. He's not a
I mean,
traitor.
he does eat honey, but he just does it while slicing and dicing at the same time.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh should be faithful. He's not a traitor, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So in the turret, after we after the fire ceremony, we find our depleted traitors, no recruit, Parvati, Phaedra, and this is where we get the Ice Princess
Yes.
discussion. Calls her a mean girl. Needs to maybe try being a little bit more lovable, Parvati. What do you think of the discussion from Phaedra here?
I mean, I think Faye just got a point, but I also think if you're Parvati, you just say stuff it, right? Because throughout this whole entire game, like literally, as soon as they took the blindfolds off, Larsa is like, "It's Parvati, it's Parvati, it's Parvati." Right? So her name's kind of always been out there, similar to her gameplay in Heroes versus Villains, right? Where straight from the start, everyone wanted her out. That's why she aligned with Russell, and they did what they did to survive and get to and just make their way to the end of the game. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that Russell did that kind of heavily damaged part of this game as well. But that's for a different podcast. But I think if you're part of the situation, it's like, what more can you really do? Everyone's already suspicious on you. People are already giving you the side eye, not really trusting you. Every time you walk into a room, they stop the conversations. Sometimes you just have to if you too.
Yeah,
If that
I
makes sense.
feel like she put herself in that position. I don't think she's played particularly well. And when she refused to turn on Dan properly and wouldn't commit to it, it made it look even worse. She wouldn't throw out names. She's not doing it. But the biggest issue I have with Parvati at the moment is her thing was always the social game, right? She's meant to be that. I guess if people are aware of it, it's harder. But she hasn't made any alliances. She doesn't have anybody in this game. Her closest person is probably Sandra, who she came in with that has a history of like rivalry. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? She hasn't found a person in the game. It's hard to, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, I can't wait to hear like post game interviews and stuff. I know that Dan Giesling has done some interviews with like previous players as well, but I'd love to know people's perception, right? Because I did hear like a small clip of Janelle apparently threw out that Dan was the two-time winner, and people
Yeah.
had no idea about that, right? So then that's why they were so immediately onto him and stuff. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's clearly a trader now. He's really good at all this sort of stuff. Maybe with Parvati, maybe like Sandra or someone else kind of said, hey, if there's one thing Parvati's good at doing is luring you in and stabbing you in the back, right? Like, look what happened to Eric and Micronesia. Oh, Eric, what happened? Oh, she was part of a team that manipulated someone to give up safety just so then they can blindside them. You
Worst
get what
move
I
in
mean?
survivor history.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And so it's like, we have this sort of reputation, right? It's like, it's impossible to shake, right? And I think maybe if that's sort of going around the house.
I do wonder though, similar to Dan, I don't know in the States, especially with this particular group of people, if if Dan from Big Brother or Parvati from Survivor is higher profile, but the fact that they had no clue who Dan was, there's a chance that some of them would have no clue who or what Parvati has done as well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Which
I
is
think,
why
yeah,
maybe Sandra's like sprinkled some stuff on. Hey, because when think about Sandra, right? She hasn't really made a move. Be like,
no,
wow, she's like a devious, horrible person or anything. Whereas with Parvati, she's made some really big blindsides that she has orchestrated.
yeah, that's
And
true. Sandra's always been anyone but me.
yeah, exactly. And I think if you are a fan of these shows, like a Dan, potentially a Janelle, CT, Sandra, um, you might just bring up with people. Oh yeah, Parvati has done this in the
Mm,
past.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Parvati's in trouble.
yeah,
Parvati is in
there's
trouble.
a lot of trouble.
We end the episode with the Mean Girl Ice Princess discussion, and the edit gives us three potentials for murder, being Bergie, Kate, and MJ, with the outcome being the cliffhanger ending the episode. Going into where we are at the moment, we're going to throw to Blood Money 47's question. Maki Kuna, are you on the side of the Petey Pals or the leftovers?
Well, I personally quite enjoy some leftovers. If I'm being honest with you, Mr. Kahuna, like if I open the fridge, I see some leftovers, like that's the best, mate. It's the absolute best. So I would say I'm on the side of the leftovers. I think there's some pretty entertaining characters
Yeah.
in there
Yeah.
that I really enjoy watching. So
Absolutely. Any
yeah,
side with a CT, Sandra and Parvati, I'm gonna root for it. And I don't know I don't necessarily know if maybe this is like one of those test things, like a meme test or whatever, that what does it say about you if you automatically find yourself on the traitor side a lot versus the faithful side? Like when you come
yeah,
into a season of the trade, like, are you rooting for the traitors or do you want the traitors to be found? And I wonder what that says about your own psychology, that you're on the traitor
yeah,
side all the time. I go for the bad guys. I want them to kill versus
yeah,
I want the heroes to find them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because we're supposed to kind of go for the traitors, right? They're the protagonists of the show. It's called The
yeah,
Traitors, about them
exactly.
getting yeah. Like,
Yeah.
don't make me feel bad. So that's where we kind of left it. Jesse, leaving
Hey,
it to the end,
Jesse,
but Jesse John Villamero said Bergie's going to be murdered, I think, and Kate Chastain will be recruited. Okay.
what's
Kate,
your thoughts on Kate so far?
I don't know. Like, I'm still like, I don't know. I mean, I do know why, because Deontay ditched him.
Mm.
But it's just weird because I feel like she's kind of struggling with the fact that she wasn't there from the beginning. She's now
Yeah.
seeing clearly she's walked into a house where there's two very clear alliances split, and she's kind of trying to navigate between two alliances, but it's not a game of Survivor, it's a game of Traitors, and
Yeah.
she's got zero information to go off. She doesn't have the same history that they have. Like, it's only 2 or 3 episodes or whatever it is, but there's still stuff that she's dealing with now that was built up or because of those first couple of days, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's hard for
Yeah.
her to make an impact. I think she'd potentially have to be like a trade is probably the best thing for her, because being a faithful.
Oh, every
And like, what do you think? Because I said to Chris, I said last week, I was like, I don't get why, like, she doesn't in her first season. Have you watched season 1 of US?
yeah. I have.
Yeah. She wasn't like particularly good at the game. She
Yeah,
wasn't a
just
big trader hunter. She was just
yeah.
a bit of a bitch that caused drama. You know what I mean? She didn't
Yeah.
mind talking shit,
Yeah.
and she got in some fights. So that was cool. But she hasn't done
Yeah.
that yet. Like, that hasn't
Yeah.
really been a thing for her yet. So she's not adding much to the show beyond a number at the moment, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've sort of felt like she's just been
Yeah.
the season, but I feel like
But
if
that's
you're
the
coming in,
attitude towards it too. She's actually like,
yeah,
why am I
yeah,
out here? I don't want to be
like,
out here.
yeah, exactly.
These
It's
people are
like,
idiots. Like, she just feels very like dismissive of the whole thing.
yeah, I mean, yeah, probably because I think maybe she knows that she doesn't have much of a chance coming in so late, but also at the same time, I feel like it only works out because of this cast. Whereas if it's
Yeah.
a normal person cast, they're murdering her straight away. But it's because of this cast, I want to make moves and stuff. That's why that she hasn't been taken out yet.
Yeah. I guess like because she's absolutely zero threat, you can kind of. Well, she's a number, isn't she? She's a number.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know what the meta is there. I don't know what the strategy is when someone comes in new. If you're a trader, do you vote them out because there's no way they're going to get banished as a trader, right?
I mean, I don't know, because it feels like a waste of a vote, but it feels like a good murder if you kind of just want to like leave. Like, if you're in a good spot on the traders, it's a good chance to just like murder her because it's just keeping the slate clean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is a zero strings attached, no suspicion, no consequence. Like, yeah, she's just very sort of. I can see that. I don't know, like Bergie, Kate, MJ. I like what you said. I like what you said, that for it to cause suspicion on the Fab Five, the faithful of the faithful, it would need to be someone on the other side, right? But I also think that they want to take a number, and taking out a Bergie or a Trishelle would make sense. Trishelle not in the focus there, not in the edit. You know, they just give you a couple of potentials. So Bergie, Kate, and MJ. Interesting times ahead. But that is going to bring us to the end of this episode 7 of the Traitors USA. I want to send a big thank you to everyone in the chat. Lovable Nikki, Blood Money. Bloody Money 47. I keep saying blood. I forgot the middle Y there. Bloody Money. Sorry, man. Jesse, Aaron, everyone. Hey, what's up? Char Dude. We're, of course, going to be back for more Traitors next week. Same time, same place. But we have Australian Survivor this Thursday night. Me and Mucky are going to be joined by Chris and Tomac. And then on Saturday morning, we have Challenge all here on TNT. I think the broadcast's already up, so you can already get your notifications and make sure you're ready for those. But until next time, we're going to catch you later and see you then. So thank you, everyone. Mucky, see you next time.
See you next time, bro. Have a good night, everyone.